It is easy to picture ancient rulers as absolute despots, commanding subjects from atop golden thrones. But in the Rig Vedic period, the earliest leaders were wandering chieftains, whose authority was heavily constrained by the tribes they led. This hierarchy built upward, starting with the family, the kula. Families formed a village, the grama. Villages combined into a clan, the vis. At the top sat the Jana, the tribal kingdom. But defined by people, not geography, the nomadic Jana had no fixed borders. In this environment, land was not a source of wealth. Since the tribe owned no fixed territory, political power rested with the collective people rather than the ownership of specific estates. Two ancient assemblies ensured the people maintained their influence. The Sabha was a select council of elders, while the Samiti functioned as a massive public assembly open to the general population. These were active political bodies with the power to veto the king. Chieftains could not simply issue decrees. Their decisions were heavily influenced and often entirely blocked by these assemblies. This balance shifted as the wandering tribes began to settle down. For the first time, they claimed fixed geographical borders and began constructing permanent settlements. Settling into one place disrupted the nomadic checks on power. The transition from mobile clans to permanent agriculture created a power vacuum, as the old assemblies struggled to adapt to a society rooted in land ownership. This shift marked the beginning of the later Vedic period. The concept of the tribe, the Jana, transformed into the Janapada, literally meaning the foothold of a tribe. Eventually, this evolved into the Rashtra, or fixed sovereign territory. As territory became the new foundation of the kingdom, the Sabha and Samiti lost political weight. The era of the public veto came to an end, as these once powerful assemblies were stripped of their influence over the crown. A new royal bureaucracy filled the gap. Rulers appointed a specialized class of officials to manage the land and its resources, including tax collectors, treasurers, and royal messengers. This was a calculated move by kings to centralize control. By creating a system that tracked and taxed agricultural output, the monarchies seized the economic leverage that had once belonged to the community. The invention of permanent borders gave kings a new type of power. They were no longer just leaders of people. They were owners of the earth, using the territory itself to cement their absolute authority. Tribal warfare intensified to expand agricultural land. Smaller tribes were absorbed into larger units. The Puru and Bharatha tribes unified to form the massive Kuru kingdom. The Kuru then absorbed the neighboring Panchala, dominating the region from their new capital, Hastinapur. Archaeological evidence shows the scale of this transformation. In place of nomadic tents, the region saw the rise of massive circular stone bastions and permanent fortified walls designed for long-term territorial defense. The transition was complete. Control of the tribe had been superseded by the permanent occupation of the territory and its stone fortifications. Managing these massive new borders required more than just a bureaucracy. The monarchs needed a psychological tool to prevent rebellion within their kingdom and to project strength to rival neighbors. The grand yajnas, or sacrifices, were reimagined to fill this need. While rooted in religious tradition, these rituals were engineered into highly public political theater, designed to justify the king's elevated status. The Rajaswaya sacrifice served as a grand coronation. This ritual was used to declare supreme authority and established a system of hereditary succession, ensuring that power remained within the king's bloodline. For territorial expansion, they utilized the Ashvamedha, or horse sacrifice. A consecrated royal horse was set free to wander across the plains. Wherever the horse traveled, the king claimed undisputed ownership of that land. The Vajapaya, a specialized chariot race, served a similar purpose. It was a rigged spectacle where the king's victory was guaranteed, providing a public demonstration of his physical and martial superiority. These rituals successfully repositioned the monarch as an untouchable figure. By the end of this period, the king's authority rested on a divine mandate, effectively insulating the crown from the checks of the public assembly. Rulers began adopting massive new titles, such as Akrat and Samrat, meaning sole ruler. These titles reflected the total victory of the monarchy over the old democratic traditions. Within a few centuries, the social structure had shifted completely. The wandering Janas, once held in check by councils of elders, had become static Janapadas, ruled by divine right. This consolidation provided the bureaucratic and ideological framework for a centralized administration. These structures served as the essential blueprint for the massive empires, such as the Mauryan and Gupta, that would later unify the subcontinent.